Hey everyone, I just wanted to jump on because I just saw the news. I've been running around all day, so I wasn't able to fully keep up with all of the politics happening, but I had a feeling this was going to happen. Um and so I'm not surprised in the slightest. Let's see. Uh but it looks like RFK has dropped out. Now, I'm not going to live react to his speech or anything like that. I'm gonna listen to it, but what I initially saw was obviously being traditionally a Democrat. I saw him kind of starting to give more so the reasoning on why he would drop out and endorse Trump, being traditionally a Democrat. He disagrees a lot with the Democratic Party, but essentially more so explaining for a lot of the shit libs who are actually willing to listen, who are probably, clutching their pearls right now about, oh my God, how could you drop out and endorse Trump, even though these people had no intention of voting for him in the first place, and they just completely had no skepticism. They just took whatever the line was from the corporate media, that he's just an anti-vax conspiracy theorist, and he's just horrible in every way. God forbid these people actually look into what he says for themselves. They just parrot what they hear on corporate media. And so these people had no love for Bobby Kennedy anyways, even though he's got a vastly better record on almost everything. I do have a massive disagreement with him on Israel. I think he's terrible on that issue, but in almost every other regard, he's better than Trump and Kamala. So that's why, I I struggled with the rationalizations. If I was going to vote for him, just because the Israel issue is so big to me that I'm like, can I justify voting for someone who is that bad on that issue? And part of me is like, no, absolutely not. But then the other part of me is like, you know, if everything else, if they're all three terrible on that issue, so that's what they all have in common. But then in every other regard, the other two are absolutely atrocious, Kamala and Trump, and then this guy's better. That's where my brain goes, okay, I mean, you can't escape this no matter what, but at least vote for the guy who, in every other way, is better. Um, I, not that I didn't think he could win, he did have a chance, but obviously the Democratic uh, Party made it extremely hard and damn near, or they did, they didn't damn near, they rigged it against him. It's it's kind of institutionalized how difficult they made it. After Ross Perot, they decided to do this because that's one of the many things that the Democrats and Republicans agree on behind the scenes is we cannot have another Ross Perot. He came way too close to upsetting the two-party duopoly, and as much as we pretend to, we do this kabuki theater of fighting against each other, we all know that we're basically a uniparty and that this is all a fucking show. But this guy actually had a chance to come in and upset the apple cart, so we have to structurally make it hard for any third party to even have a modicum of a chance of winning. And Bobby was extremely popular, especially amongst disaffected voters on both sides. Um, I think he technically, the more we learned, took slightly more votes from Trump. Um, but his main base were disaffected voters that wouldn't have voted anyways. Um, Briefly, I want to touch on this thing that has basically boiled my blood since, when was it? Probably 2016, is both sides engaging in this. I saw it more on the Democratic side because that's the side that's supposed to align with my left values more. But I recently saw the same thing happening with RFK on the Trump side, on the Republican side. And it's essentially either party and the voters of said party shaming you for voting for anything other than one of the two parties. Now, like for example, say you're a Democrat, or you would align more with the left. God forbid you go, hey, let me vote for the People's Party or the Green Party or some other third party because you're like, the Democrats do not represent me anymore. I don't think that they're actually left. I'm going to vote with what my values are. These people will come in and say, well, that's a vote for Trump, and that it's a protest vote or it's a castaway, meaningless vote. And I find that so unbelievably infuriating. You have no idea. The whole, basically, you're, taking away a vote from our candidate, and it's like, well, that wasn't your vote to begin with. That's my vote. I vote for whoever the fuck I damn well please. So this whole, oh my God, trying to shame someone and then trying to basically make it out to be that it's merely a protest vote or something else. In some ways, sure, it could be a protest, but if I'm voting for a candidate because I think that they represent me more, that's not just purely me protesting the other candidate or two candidates from the two main parties. It could just be me voting based on what I feel is the best fit. Even if I know that they don't have a chance in hell of winning, I'm going to vote with my conscience. But this shaming from either side, basically, there was a lot of this happening with RFK. A lot of people on the right saying, oh, if you vote for RFK, that's a vote for Kamala. No, it's not. No, it is not. And that is a way of trying to keep you locked into this two-party system. Now, it's almost like social engineering, a way of getting the voters to even reinforce this concept that no, you can never vote outside of the two parties, because if you ever do, you're just helping the other side, and therefore you're a bad person, and it's all going to be your fault. They did this to Bernie voters who were like, fuck it, now that you guys cheated Bernie, like I'm going to vote for Jill Stein or something. And they basically almost I think it was just so clearly that Hillary was just a terrible candidate that she lost, but they really were trying to pin it on disaffected lefty voters and basically saying, you didn't vote the way that we think that you owed us. It's this vibe of, you owe us your vote, when in reality it's like, no, you better come get my vote. I don't owe you shit. If you don't actually make an attempt to come win me over with policy, then I don't owe you fuck all. And no amount of fear mongering about, oh, you're just gonna help the other side. If Trump gets elected, it's all gonna be your fault. I'm not falling for that. I vehemently disagree with that. I think that is a disgusting outlook. And that's pretty antithetical to the entire idea of this country, is that the politicians are supposed to represent you. So if they don't represent you and you have a lot of ideological differences with them and don't feel that they've earned your vote, then you don't owe them your vote. So that tangent aside, is, you know, if you see a lot of that, and that's what I would encourage people to, mostly on, I mean, on either side, but because I align more with the left, I see this happen a lot more, is if you can't stand Kamala and you don't feel represented by the Democratic Party anymore, which God knows I haven't for a long time, when I really realized how much they've turned corporate and, you know, basically are the exact same party as the Republicans. And it's not like it's a recent thing. They've been this for a while. I just woke up and was like, oh, wow, they just, you know, they wrapped themselves in a rainbow flag to hide, you know, all of their corruption and pro-war and, you know, pro-deep state three-letter agency. And but don't vote for them. If you don't feel represented, you know, vote however you want. Don't be shamed by these people who will never ask the politician to actually come get your vote, but they will be the first people to shame you into trying to essentially emotionally blackmail you into voting for their preferred candidate. And that is wrong and it's disgusting. So don't let anyone do that to you. So it looks like RFK, I mean, I kind of saw this coming as soon as Nicole Shanahan went on, I don't know what show or podcast that was, but she essentially said, you know, here's the choice. It's, do we stay in or do we drop out and endorse Trump? And I think, who said it? Dave Smith. Dave Smith basically pointed out exactly what I was thinking at the time too, so it kind of confirmed my you know, gut feeling that as soon as I heard her say it, I was like, they wouldn't be coming out and saying this if they weren't either 100%, at least like 95% sure that that's what they were going to do, is drop out or suspend at least and endorse Trump. For a lot of people on the Democratic side wondering why, and I don't want to put too many words in RFK's mouth considering I haven't watched the full speech, but given the brief little thing that I saw, actually, let's I'm going to show you right here. I saw this on Twitter. So we got Johnny MAGA. CNN has had 2 random Kennedy cousins on in the last hour to tell us why RFK is wrong. LMAO. They're freaking losing it. Yeah, I think that's funny. They got them so fast that it's like, I mean, Kennedy's whole family are a bunch of shit libs. They do not represent actually what JFK represented, which was sure a Democrat, but actually willing to call out corruption and the deep state. And, you know, he wasn't perfect, but he was a lot more populist than the Kennedys have been since. And that's probably why he got assassinated by the mob and the CIA. Or allegedly the mob and the CIA. But yeah, his family, the Kennedy family, has been just total Dem shitlib insiders. And so the fact that he had any politics that were outside of the corporate Democratic Party made him within the family kind of a persona non grata. And so, you know, they've already interviewed when he started running a lot of the family who's basically like, I disavow him. You know, I think Kamala's the best thing since sliced bread. She's just so so falling over themselves in support of her. So So God forbid he has any criticisms of the Democratic Party, even though he was one of the first people to say, I love the Democratic Party because it's been my party since I was old enough to vote. And, you know, it's been in, like, our family is lifelong Democrat. But here's the crux of why I think. Actually, first, let's just switch this really quickly so that we can all hear it. And let me...
At the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC...
Let me read it. CNN cut away from RFK Jr.'s speech as he was explaining how the DNC rigged the primary, replaced their candidate with one who didn't receive a single vote, and how the media covered up for it and censored him. So I will comment on that after this video. That seems to be pretty clearly why he's choosing, even though he disagrees with him a lot, choosing Trump as the lesser of two evils. Because, you know, that's all politics is in America nowadays, is the lesser of two evils. But let's see what he has to say, and let's see CNN. The moment that he starts getting real about how the Democratic National Convention is completely rigged and the party is totally rigged, and the hypocrisy of them being so pro-saving democracy and meanwhile subverting true democracy, like, unbelievably.
At the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. My uncle and my father both relished debate. They prided themselves on their capacity to go toe-to-toe with any opponent in the battle over ideas. They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days.
We've been listening to independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from Phoenix outlining what led him to his quixotic quest for the White House to now dropping out and relinquishing the title of Democrat. He had a series of complaints about the party. We're, of course, going to continue watching his remarks. There's a back and forth over whether he's going to endorse former President Donald Trump.
We're, of course, going to continue watching his and listening to his remarks as soon as he gets off of this subject. The moment he stops talking about how Kamala hasn't appeared in an interview at all, refuses to talk about policy, the fact that there was, what did he call it, the palace coup, and that she didn't receive a single vote, and that basically the whole thing is rigged. As soon as he stops talking about that, we'll cut right back in. But we can't be broadcasting this to all of the CNN voters. We have them in, or the CNN audience, who are mostly Democratic voters. We have them in this little insulated bubble where they think everything is happy, hunky-dory. Kamala is just the best thing ever. And God forbid they hear, oh yeah, you know what? Why hasn't she been in interviews? Why hasn't she, like, proposed almost any policy whatsoever? Why isn't she really going to go debate and do a bunch of debates now? Doesn't she want to get her message out there? And, you know, there are some dyed-in-the-wool shit-lib Democrats who literally won't question at all, but I feel like CNN they did that because they're worried about the odd Democrat or two that might go, you know what? That's actually a good point. Now, even if it doesn't change their mind, just having that thought is too dangerous for CNN to show.
Pictures from Phoenix, Arizona, where Kennedy is expected to say publicly what he's already made official in a court filing, that he will endorse Donald Trump. Perhaps no coincidence. Trump is set to hold a campaign rally tonight with a special unnamed RFK. Suzanne Craig, MSNBC contributor Jonathan Alter, who's written.
I believe this was MSNBC at the exact same time, right? When he started talking about that too. I believe they did the exact same thing. Right when he starts talking about it, talking about the corruption in the DNC and just the Democratic Party as a whole, both CNN and MSNBC are like, no, cut. Just start bullshitting, start talking about anything, repeat the basic premise. Oh, RFK, he's probably going to talk about blah, 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 and whatever they're being fed in their earpiece. It's like, oh my God.
To now dropping out.
Here's the same thing. So I love how oh no, I didn't see this.
Yeah, I was watching that, and Donald Trump last week stood and said in front of a bunch of groceries and said, I haven't seen any Cheerios in a long time. I had Cheerios for breakfast. This was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And trying to get any logic out of that is good luck with that. Because it's, one, you can't understand what he says. Two, if you can't understand what he says. And I'm reminded of a line in Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles when somebody gets up and gives an indecipherable speech. He says, who can argue with that? That's authentic frontier gibberish, and that's exactly what that is.
Wow. They are just so insufferable and so hypocritical on everything, which is why, everyone who isn't essentially Blue MAGA, and all of you in Blue MAGA, you are no better than Trump MAGA people. You are just as brainwashed. So don't have this chip on your shoulder as if you're somehow above the fray. No, you're not. You're literally just the equivalent brainwashed in the opposite direction. But I love how hypocritical and just elitist and insufferable these people are. Now, I really want to go through the speech, because I guarantee there was nothing that was gibberish or unintelligible other than, they might be mocking his spasmodic dysphonia, which is something he can't help and is such a low blow, I guess you'd call it, but it's only something that you would ever mock or bring up when you can't attack the actual issues. Now, he's supposedly saying that it's just a bunch of gibberish. He didn't give one example, but I'm really curious. I'm gonna watch this on my own time, not on stream. Cut away. I love how this is blowing up, because
He is expected to say publicly what he's already made official in a court filing.
The veneer of respectable programming that the corporate media has is wearing off. More and more people see it for what it is, which is just propaganda. Propaganda for one of the two parties, depending on what you watch. And so I love that it's blowing up, because people, I don't think a long time ago, or even 15 years ago, would have seen that and would have spoken. There would be people like me who would watch that and go, wow, that was oddly convenient when they cut away, and but I think a lot of people would just not even think about it. But I love how now the respect is so low and the hatred is so high for corporate media that people are so quick to call them out on their bullshit and just be like, it was pretty clear what you did there. You started telling too much truth for you guys to air on your news network, so you had to cut away. And of course, they bring fucking random RFK Jr. cousins on to basically
that he will endorse Donald.
Shut the fuck
pictures from
up.
Phoenix.
Why does this keep
Trump
auto-playing? Fuck
Perhaps
off.
no coincidence.
You can't make this up.
Pictures from Phoenix, Arizona.
Elon,
Trump
your
is set to hold a
is
campaign rally tonight with a special.
You can't make this up. Literally, me scrolling Watch this.
unnamed guests in
Why
Glendale.
does me scrolling make it fucking play again? That is dumb as hell, Elon. What the fuck is that? That's so stupid.
Pictures from Phoenix, Arizona.
That is so unbelievably
Arizona. That's
dumb.
just 20 minutes
Good
from
God.
where.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get off of the page because I can't be. Elon, that's retarded to have that.
I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. In about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name. And I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. Three great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. And now to throw my support to President Trump. I want everyone to know that.
Oh, it's from CNN. I'm so unbelievably scared to open these comments because I guarantee it's going to be so many shit libs talking about how, let me guess, it's going to be, he's a disgrace to the Kennedy name. I always knew RFK was terrible. How could he vote for that orange man? Blah. They're just going to be tearing their fucking hair out and not having any introspection on, wow, he even wanted a cabinet position in exchange for support for Kamala. And that probably was a hard decision for him, but I know that he still has a lot of, love for the Democratic Party, but hates where it's been going. And she basically told him to fuck off. And so, he needed a way. Now, I think that he's keeping it suspended just in case there's anything crazy that happens. Because out of anyone, he's a third party who's had the best chance of actually winning, especially if they wouldn't have rigged it against him in a long time. But let's just see. Oh, I love this. Horrible edit of his speech, highly manipulative, doesn't show anything he said about the Dem Party, censorship is elitism. This is fucking awesome. Let me like all these. Libs, you do realize your beloved CNN edited the shit out of this, right? Show the entire clip, you cowards. CNN censoring him. Yes, okay, here you go. Here's the shit lib. His father and uncle are turning in their graves to stoop so low with an honorable namesake like yours. You betrayed your country for Trump, and that's sad. New piece lib. Yeah, I don't want to get caught watching reading shitlib comments is such a fucking rabbit hole that I can go down because it just irks me to no end. The what's the word that it was on one of Jimmy Dore's live panel shows, and there was this I think it was a congressman, Republican congressman, and he was actually really fucking funny, and he came up with a word, smugnorant. Libs are so fucking smugnorant, smug and ignorant. They know fucking nothing, but they think that they're the most intelligent people ever, and they will be the first to spew some absolute fucking factually incorrect bullshit your way, and God forbid you try to correct them. You know, they're some of the most insufferable motherfuckers on the entire planet. You know, there's people like that on both sides, don't get me wrong, but I anecdotally have experienced a lot more open-mindedness, even if I don't successfully change a person's mind. The willingness to engage in an honest conversation, I've actually experienced a lot more on the conservative side than I have engaging with people who are supposedly on the left with me and just criticizing the Democratic Party from the left, which is what I do, and you would think that you killed their entire family. Like, that's how they react to you. It's fucking nuts, and they're some of the most insufferable human beings on the fucking planet. Libs are fucking terrible. Holy shit. And again, I'm on the left. I just can't stand shit libs. They are the worst human beings. But yeah, so just I'm kind of in the camp with Bobby Kennedy. They are they've fully gone corrupt, which is what I always grew up thinking that the Republicans were, like, they had the monopoly on corruption minus like one or two Democrats that were corrupt, and oh, it's just the blue dogs, but everyone else in the Democratic Party is just so good, and the Republicans are just the pro-corporate party. But now the Democrats are pro-corporate, they're pro-war. Honestly, it's kind of crazy the shift that is happening. And I'm not going to say there's a majority or even like a lot of them, but there's more willingness on the Republican side, it seems like nowadays, to actually criticize our foreign interventions than there is on the fucking Democratic side. They'll go along with every war if it's, du jour, is that the correct context for that? But, God forbid you have any context about how NATO sparked the war in Ukraine, and you say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be sending hundreds of billions of dollars over there when we have crumbling fucking bridges and homeless people over here and a lot of problems to solve over here. Maybe let them figure it out. But what they know, the libs in Congress, who are supposed to be classically liberals, were anti-war. So you would think they would be against, funding the military to the tune of like $1 trillion and then sending more money to Israel and Ukraine, but they're in favor of all of that. They're not actually principled lefties. Classic left used to be pro bodily autonomy. Now they'll still try to say we're pro bodily autonomy, but it's only when it comes to abortion, which I'm pro-choice. I'm a pro-choice person up to a, certain time frame. Obviously, like, when it gets really late, it's kind of a weird, sketchy area. But, like, I'm pretty fucking pro-choice, pretty mainstream, with probably the majority of citizens on the left or right in that regard. But that's what they mean by pro-bodily autonomy nowadays, although it used to be just as a principle pro-bodily autonomy. But after a certain worldwide pandemic happened and they were all in on mandates and, shaming you for, you're going to kill grandma if you don't get this experimental gene therapy, which is what it is. All of a sudden, it wasn't principled pro bodily autonomy. It was just simply pro choice. Only pro choice when it comes to abortion. And some people even switch to just saying I'm pro abortion. Is a weird thing to say. Even if you agree with, having a choice. Just a weird thing to be pro. So they're not actually pro bodily autonomy anymore. They are pro war. They censor. They're actually in favor of these things like the what was that fucking board that they tried, that the Joe Biden tried? The Mis and Disinformation Governance Board with who was that woman? Oh my god, she was like Orwell censorship meets fucking theater band kid. It was the most ridiculous. Oh, what is her name? Disinformation Governance Board. Nina Jankowicz. This absolute fucking lunatic. So they really wanted to put this woman. Where is it?
I don't know who this individual is, so I have no comment on it specifically.
Her name is Nina Jankowicz.
Please tell me what to do. Who do I fuck to be famous? Saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet, so
Opposes that effort.
Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet, so disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
She framed and wrote this entire song about disinformation and how we need to stamp it out to the tune of Mary Poppins. So that's what I mean when I say theater band kid meets George Orwell censorship. So that's what the Democrats are about now too. They're not for bodily autonomy, except for in the case of abortion. They're pro-war. They're pro-censorship. They wanted to put this fucking absolute loon in charge of policing what people are able to say online and what's considered mis and disinformation. And God forbid there's incorrect things on the fucking internet. What should we do? We should take it down and have the government censor it. Or, I don't know, maybe you could just correct it with better information, but preserve the First Amendment. Crazy. So they're pro-censorship. They're insanely corrupt. They take basically just the same amount of money as the Republicans. They just happen to take it from different corporations. Certain industries do favor certain political parties more, like I believe oil still favors, I could be wrong about that, but I think oil still favors the Republicans slightly more. Most of these places donate to both because, they want to basically bribe both parties. They don't really have an ideological concern about who they donate to. But big tech is definitely more donating to the Democrats, and it kind of makes sense that it goes hand in hand. It's this big tech social media meets deep state meets censorship, essentially. So they kind of go hand in glove. Like the interests all mesh between these parties, not political parties, but these agents, essentially. And yeah, so they've basically become the antithesis of what the Democrats used to actually stand for, and basically what classical liberalism and classic, being on the left meant, which is like the anti-war, anti-censorship, pro-bodily autonomy, all the stuff that if you're on the left, you think. And a lot of shit libs might still think that the Democratic Party represents that, but if you actually look at their actions, they don't. And in I think that's mainly why RFK was inclined to endorse Trump, because as much as, and I tend to agree, not necessarily with endorsing Trump, but just with this evaluation of where we stand in this country, is that while I probably disagree on paper more with some of the conservative, like Trump, on a lot of his plans, like his cutting taxes, it's going to go to the wealthy, of course, and he's just kind of unpredictable on other things, but the convictions that he has on conservative issues, I tend to be, vehemently opposed to. But the problem is watching the party that used to, decades ago, actually stand up for labor and be anti-censorship and everything that I just listed, completely morph into this other party, the party of the CIA and the NSA, pro-censorship through things like this disinformation governance board, the party that used to be anti-war and have tons of people within the party speaking up against war, now are some of the first ones to virtue signal about how we need to send more money to Ukraine and more money to Israel to go blow up children, women and children, and men too. Not you're not by definition a fucking Hamas insurgent just because you're a man, but women, children, and innocent men over in Gaza, and probably are gonna reauthorize a new military budget that's bigger than ever again whenever that reauthorization comes up. So they're pro-war. They were some of the most draconian, just being authoritarian with the pandemic, with a lot of their policies. They weren't evidence-based. They just were decrees from on high that absolutely negatively impacted this country in such a massive way, whether it be mental health, economically, etc. So they've morphed into literally the opposite of everything they used to stand for, and that's scarier than a party who, even though I disagree with them, still basically stands for what they used to. It's just been a shifting of certain neocons, and then they've gotten some more populists in. But the Democrats have just lost any ounce of, I don't want to say street cred, but like cred with the labor movement and just actual left issues whatsoever. They've just completely gone to the dark side, to use a Star Wars analogy. They are literally like, there is not a shred of the former Dem Party left. They are just completely fucking hollow corporate shells of their former selves. So, RFK, I feel like, is in this weird position where he's just like, I don't agree with Trump on almost anything, but like looking back at my old party and not seeing any of the fond memory that I used to have, and actually being actively having them rig the process against me, the lesser of two evils would be to endorse Trump. But none of the shit libs are actually going to listen to that. They're just going to have that go in one ear, out the other. And how could you endorse Donald Trump? Don't you know he's literally Hitler, and like he's the worst thing ever? And it's like, all right, what is he going to concrete do that's A, so bad, but B, tell me how somehow voting for Kamala is going to be better on this issue? And most of the time it's just short circuits the brain, because it never really was about that policy for a lot of or most of the shit libs. It really is just Trump derangement syndrome, and there's something in them that Trump just irks them so much on a certain level that they're willing to completely shut off the critical, policy focused part of their brain and shut off any introspection and ability to criticize their own party for the bullshit that they engage in, just because Trump in their brain, even if it's completely unjustified, is literally this like Hitlerian figure who might as well be the Antichrist in their mind. It really is Trump derangement syndrome. And that's what I can't stand is it's easy for these cynical Democratic actors to literally do nothing and fundraise off of just this literally insane, irrational hatred. And I'm not a Trump fan. I actually dislike the guy. But it's this so visceral, irrational hatred that isn't rooted in a true concrete reason. It's just they basically projected every single thing that they hate, that they think that they hate, especially about the opposite political side, onto this guy. So it makes it easy for the Dems to fundraise and like basically campaign off of just that hatred. They don't have to actually promise anything or do anything. They can just say, but I'm not Trump. But Trump is worse. And it's fucking depressing that we've gotten here. And to kind of really quickly further bolster my argument that the Democratic Party has become the party of the CIA and other three-letter agencies. I know why they did it. It's because all the shitlibs aren't going to actually look into this guy and his record and anything like that. They're just going to hear that he's former, Secretary of Defense, and that he defended the nation, and blah, 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 blah. But this is one of the most entrenched spooks in our entire government ecosystem. This guy used to be the CIA director. He is so entrenched within the military-industrial complex and cooing other countries around the world and essentially being the head of that shadowy figure that a lot of people rightfully think of when they think of the United States. This like octopus that's just has its hands in everything around the world and actively tries to manipulate not only populations around the world, but its own population too. And traditionally, what a lefty would do would be to call out these agencies for the corrupt, foreign meddling entities that they are. And yet, at the DNC, again, because the shitlibs aren't going to have any idea of who this guy is or even have any critical, research into him. They're not going to look up who this guy is. They don't care. They just get told that this guy is like, he doesn't like Trump. He's part of the, U.S. Secretary of Defense and blah, blah, blah. And he thinks Trump is terrible. And they'll go, well, even the old Secretary of Defense doesn't like Trump. So look at that. And they won't have any critical, rational thought about, wow, why are they bringing a CIA spook to talk about how we need Kamala Harris? It's morphed so much because people really are pacified to where they turn their brains off and their critical thinking skills off. But a real lefty, I'm sorry to say, but a real lefty who actually looks into the issues and doesn't just think that they're somehow this virtuous left person because they vote blue, a person who actually looks into the issues and has the principles of what the left used to have, not even that long ago, you would wear, like, if you were Trump, for example, but had the lefty bona fides of back in the day, you would wear the condemnation of a CIA official as a badge of honor. And them agreeing with you and being like called to speak at your convention would be horrific anyone who's like a progressive or a true lefty who knows anything about US regime change and how it's absolutely terrible, and this dude is one of the ones who's responsible for meddling around the world and essentially contributing to this massive view of the United States as this shadowy governmental corrupt entity, which it is. You would view this guy speaking as an insult. You'd be mortified if he was invited to speak at the convention. But I mean, let's see.
And someone who stands with our military. One choice.
Yep. All they have to say, because these people are operating on like 2 brain cells bouncing around in their fucking skull. All he has to say is Trump is terrible and you only have one choice, and it's a strong independent woman, Kamala Harris. And like those words trigger the crowd, trigger the shit-lib base, and it's just, meanwhile they're literally they're cheering one of the biggest figureheads of the corruption and the foreign meddling that the United States engages in all the time. And they don't even fucking know. They just know, oh, Leon Panetta, blah, blah, blah. They probably didn't even give this guy a second thought. It was, I hope more lefty commentators do a video on this, because I would love to see like Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or just someone from the gray zone do a segment on how fucking unbelievable this is that they had Leon Panetta to speak at the DNC, and how clearly that shows that the Democratic Party really is just the deep state party nowadays. Yeah, fucking, I rambled so much in this. I just go make some dinner before I lose my mind.